The sun had just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The air was cool, carrying with it the faint scent of freshly cut grass. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, life moved at its usual slow pace. Children laughed as they chased each other around under the dim glow of streetlights while parents sat on porches chatting about their day. It was an ordinary evening, or so everyone thought. Emma, a curious 9-year-old girl with wild curls that bounced as she ran, loved this time of day. She wasn't like most kids her age who preferred video games or cartoons. Emma's favorite thing to do was look up at the stars. Her dad often joked that she'd grow up to be an astronaut someday. But tonight, something felt different. There was an odd stillness in the air, as if nature itself was holding its breath. After dinner, Emma slipped out of the house unnoticed. Her mom had told her to stay indoors after dark, but Emma couldn't resist. She grabbed her father's old pair of binoculars from the shelf by the window and tiptoed into the backyard. The grass tickled her bare feet as she lay down on the soft ground gazing upward. The stars twinkled back at her, countless tiny pinpricks of light scattered across the vast canvas of the night sky. But then, one star caught her attention. At first glance, it looked no different from the others, just another bright dot among millions. But as Emma squinted through her binoculars, she realized something strange. This star wasn't twinkling. Instead, it pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, and it seemed closer than the rest, hanging low in the sky. Emma frowned, lowering the binoculars for a moment before raising them again. Yes, it was definitely moving. Slowly, steadily, it descended toward Earth. Her heart began to race. Was it a plane? A satellite? Or something else entirely? Emma stood up, clutching the binoculars tightly. She took a step forward, trying to get a better view. Suddenly, there was a rustling sound behind her. Startled, she spun around, nearly dropping the binoculars. The tall oak tree at the edge of the yard swayed slightly even though there was no wind. "Hello?" Emma called out hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. No one answered. Just as she was about to convince herself it was nothing, something emerged from behind the tree. Something not human. At first, all Emma could see were shadows shifting unnaturally. Then, slowly, figures stepped into the moonlight. They were tall, much taller than any adult she'd ever seen, with slender bodies covered in smooth, pale skin that shimmered faintly. Their limbs were long and spindly, and their heads were elongated, making them look almost insect-like. But what frightened Emma the most were their eyes. Large, black, and unblinking, they stared straight at her, devoid of emotion yet somehow filled with curiosity. Emma froze, her legs refusing to move. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she couldn't tear her gaze away from the creatures. One of them stepped closer, tilting its head slightly as if studying her. Its movements were eerily fluid, completely silent despite the dry leaves crunching beneath its feet. Emma's mind raced. What did they want? Why were they here? The creature raised one arm, revealing a hand that ended in long, metallic claws rather than fingers. It reached toward her, not aggressively but cautiously, as if unsure of how she might react. Emma's breath hitched in her throat. She wanted to scream, to call for help, but fear paralyzed her. Just as the clawed hand came, within inches of her face, a deafening roar split the silence. It was so loud that Emma stumbled backward, falling onto the grass. The creatures froze, their heads snapping upward in unison. Even Emma turned her gaze skyward, forgetting her fear for a moment. Above them, the clouds parted unnaturally, as if pulled apart by invisible hands. What lay beyond defied imagination. Massive ships hovered silently in the night sky, their surfaces gleaming with an otherworldly light. These weren't ordinary spaceships, they resembled ancient warships, bristling with weapons and adorned with glowing insignias. Each vessel was larger than anything Emma had ever seen, dwarfing even the biggest airplanes she knew of. The creatures' expressions changed instantly. Gone was their earlier confidence. Now, pure terror radiated from them. Whatever these ships, where the aliens clearly recognized them and feared them. One of the creatures let out a high-pitched screech, its body trembling visibly. Without hesitation, the group retreated, backing away toward the trees. But they didn't get far. A beam of blinding light shot down from one of the ships, encircling the aliens like a net. Before Emma could blink, they vanished, teleported aboard one of the vessels. She blinked again, trying to process what had just happened. Had those things been real? Or was she dreaming? As the initial shock wore off, Emma noticed movement in the distance. People were stepping out of their houses, drawn by the commotion. Neighbors gathered in yards and driveways, pointing at the sky and murmuring in disbelief. Some clutched their phones, recording videos, while others hugged their children tightly. Everyone seemed confused, scared, and awestruck all at once. Emma remained rooted to the spot, staring at the massive ships looming overhead. They hadn't moved since appearing, as if daring anyone or anything to challenge their presence. For a brief moment, she wondered if she should tell someone what she'd seen, but deep down she knew they wouldn't believe her. Who would? Aliens? Giant spaceships? It sounded like something out of a movie. Still, one thing was certain. Emma's life, and perhaps the entire world's, had changed forever. Whatever those ships were, whoever controlled them, they weren't here to harm humans. If anything, they had saved her, saved Earth. But why? And at what cost? For now, answers eluded her. All Emma could do was watch as the ships continued to hover silently, casting a protective shadow over the planet below. Whatever came next, she knew one thing for sure. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. The night was far from over. As the massive ships loomed silently in the sky, a strange calm settled over the neighborhood. The once chaotic scene of curious neighbors and frightened children began to quiet down, replaced by an eerie stillness. Emma stood frozen in her backyard, her heart pounding like a drum. She clutched the binoculars tightly in her small hands. Though they were useless now, there was nothing left to look at. The aliens were gone, and the ships above seemed to be waiting for something. Her mind raced with questions. Who were those creatures? Why had they come here? And most importantly, what were those ships doing in the sky? They didn't belong to Earth. That much was clear. But if they weren't alien, then whose were they? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. For the first time in her life, Emma felt both terrified and awestruck, as though she'd stumbled into a story too big for her to understand. Before she could process anything further, a deep, resonant voice echoed across the landscape. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once, amplified in a way that made it impossible to ignore. "Leave this planet immediately," the voice commanded in perfect English. The tone was firm but devoid of anger, more like a warning than a threat. Yet, it carried an undeniable weight, as though the speaker held unimaginable power. Emma's eyes widened. She glanced around, searching for the source of the voice, but no one else seemed to know where it was coming from either. Her neighbors exchanged nervous looks, some whispering among themselves while others simply stared upward in stunned silence. Whatever was happening, it was beyond anything anyone had ever experienced. High above, the ships remained motionless, their glowing insignias casting faint light over the darkened streets. Then, without warning, beams of energy shot down from the largest vessel, illuminating the area like daylight. The light wasn't harsh or blinding. It was controlled, precise. It surrounded the spot where the aliens had disappeared moments earlier, leaving behind only a faint shimmer in the air. Seconds later, another beam appeared, this time aimed directly at Emma. She gasped, instinctively shielding her face with her arms. But instead of feeling heat or pain, she heard a soft hum, followed by a gentle breeze. When she lowered her arms, she saw a figure standing before her, a man dressed in a sleek black uniform unlike anything she'd ever seen. His presence radiated authority, yet there was kindness in his eyes as he knelt down to meet her gaze. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice calm and reassuring. Emma shook her head, unable to speak. The man nodded, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're safe now," he said. "Come with me." Emma hesitated. Every fiber of her being screamed, to run away, to hide under her bed and pretend none of this had happened. But something about the man's demeanor made her trust him. Slowly she nodded and allowed him to lead her toward a sleek vehicle parked nearby. It looked like a car, but its smooth surface glowed faintly, and it hovered slightly above the ground. Emma climbed inside, her mind spinning with questions. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in cities and towns worldwide. Videos of the mysterious ships flooded social media within minutes, sparking panic and disbelief. Governments scrambled to respond, issuing statements urging citizens to remain calm. Some claimed the event was a military exercise gone wrong. Others dismissed it as a hoax. But eyewitness accounts poured in, people describing strange lights in the sky, unexplained disappearances, and even encounters with beings not of this world. Behind closed doors, leaders convened emergency meetings. Phone lines buzzed with frantic calls between heads of state, intelligence agencies, and military officials. No one knew what to make of the situation. Was this an invasion, a natural phenomenon, or something entirely different? Unbeknownst to the public, however, certain individuals already had answers. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, hidden facilities operated by a secret organization known as Aegis sprang into action. Aegis wasn't just any group. It was humanity's first line of defense against extraterrestrial threats. Formed centuries ago after ancient texts revealed evidence of advanced civilizations visiting Earth, Aegis had spent generations preparing for this exact moment. At their headquarters, located miles underground, monitors displayed live footage of events unfolding around the globe. Analysts worked tirelessly, piecing together data collected by satellites and surveillance drones. In the center of the room stood Dr. Evelyn Carter, the head of Aegis operations. Tall and commanding, with sharp features and piercing blue eyes, she exuded confidence even in the face of uncertainty. "We intercepted communications from the alien vessel," one technician reported, handing her a tablet. "They intended to abduct humans, specifically children, for experimentation." Dr. Carter frowned, her expression hardening. "Children? Why?" "They believe human emotions hold untapped potential," the technician explained. "Their scans detected heightened neural activity in young subjects, suggesting emotional states produce unique forms of energy." Evelyn clenched her fists, her jaw tightening. "So they thought preying on our weakest members would go unnoticed." Her voice dripped with disdain. "They underestimated us." Turning to her team, she issued orders with precision. "Deploy reconnaissance teams to gather intel on their homeworld. Simultaneously prepare countermeasures in case they retaliate, and locate the child who witnessed the initial encounter. She may hold critical information." Back in the hovering vehicle, Emma sat quietly, observing everything around her. The interior of the craft was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Smooth walls that glowed softly, holographic displays floating in midair, and seats that molded themselves to her body. The man who had rescued her introduced himself as Commander, Marcus Hale. He spoke gently, explaining that he worked for an organization dedicated to protecting Earth from threats beyond human understanding. "You mean aliens?" Emma asked hesitantly. Marcus nodded. "Yes, but not all extraterrestrials are hostile. Many have visited Earth throughout history, leaving behind knowledge and technology we've since uncovered. Our mission is to safeguard humanity while maintaining peace with other species." Emma listened intently, her fear gradually giving way to curiosity. "Why did those aliens try to take me?" "That's what we need your help figuring out," Marcus replied. "Your account of tonight's events will provide valuable insights, but don't worry, you won't be alone. We'll protect you." As the vehicle descended into a hidden facility, Emma marveled at the sight before her. Rows of advanced machinery hummed with energy, while scientists and engineers bustled about working on projects she couldn't begin to comprehend. At the center of it all stood Dr. Evelyn Carter, who greeted Emma with a warm smile. "Welcome, Emma," Evelyn said, kneeling to match her eye level. "I know this must be overwhelming, but you've done nothing wrong. You're here because you're important, not just to us, but to the future of humanity. Over the next few hours, Emma recounted every detail of her encounter: the pulsating star, the strange creatures, the arrival of the ships. Evelyn listened carefully, occasionally asking clarifying questions. By the end of the interview, Emma felt drained but relieved. Sharing her story somehow made it feel less surreal, as though acknowledging the truth gave her a sense of control. But as the night wore on, troubling thoughts crept into Emma's mind. If those aliens had planned to kidnap her, what would they do next? And how many more were out there watching and waiting? Little did anyone know, the real battle was only beginning. While Aegis analyzed the data and prepared for potential retaliation, the abducted aliens found themselves aboard one of the massive ships. Confined within transparent chambers, they communicated telepathically, relaying detailed reports to their homeworld. Their leaders listened intently, growing increasingly enraged. To be thwarted by primitive humans was unacceptable, a grave insult to their empire. Plans for revenge were already underway. The hidden facility buzzed with activity as Emma sat in a small, brightly lit room. Her mind was still reeling from everything she'd seen and heard: the aliens, the ships, the organization called Aegis. It all felt like something out of a science fiction movie. Yet here she was, sitting in the middle of it, surrounded by people who seemed to know far more about the universe than anyone else on Earth. Dr. Evelyn Carter entered the room, carrying a tray with 2 steaming cups of hot chocolate. She smiled warmly at Emma and placed the tray on the table between them. "I thought you might need something to calm your nerves," she said softly, handing 1 cup to Emma. Emma accepted it gratefully, wrapping her fingers around the warm mug. "Thank you," she murmured, taking a tentative sip. The sweetness spread through her chest, offering a small sense of comfort amidst the chaos. Evelyn sat down across from her, leaning forward slightly. "You've been through a lot tonight, Emma. I can't imagine how overwhelming this must be for you, but I want you to know, you're safe here. We're going to do everything we can to protect you and everyone else." Emma nodded slowly, though her brow furrowed with curiosity. "Why didn't anyone tell us about this before, about aliens and spaceships and everything?" Evelyn sighed, her expression thoughtful. "It's complicated," she admitted. "For centuries, humanity has known that we aren't alone in the universe. Ancient civilizations left behind clues, artifacts, carvings, even texts describing encounters with beings not of this world. But most people dismissed these stories as myths or legends. When Aegis was formed, our founders realized that revealing the truth could cause panic. People weren't ready to accept it." She paused, looking directly into Emma's eyes. "And so we kept it secret, not because we wanted to deceive anyone, but because we needed time to prepare. To build technology, defenses, and strategies to ensure humanity's survival. Tonight proved that decision was necessary." Emma frowned, processing what Evelyn had said. It made sense in a way. If someone had told her yesterday that aliens existed and giant spaceships were patrolling the skies, she probably wouldn't have believed it either. Still, there was something unsettling about keeping such monumental secrets from the rest of the world. "What happens now?" Emma asked quietly, staring into her mug. "That depends on many things," Evelyn replied. "First, we need to understand why those aliens came here. Their intentions weren't random. They targeted children like you for a reason. Once we figure that out, we'll decide how to respond." Emma shivered at the thought. Being hunted by extraterrestrials wasn't exactly comforting. "Do you think they'll come back?" Evelyn hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "They might. And if they do, we'll be ready for them. But don't worry, we won't let anything happen to you." As the hours passed, Aegis teams worked tirelessly to analyze data collected during the alien encounter. Scientists examined samples taken from the creature's teleportation beam, while linguists decoded fragments of their telepathic communication. Every piece of information brought them closer to understanding the invaders' motives. Meanwhile, high above Earth, the massive fleet remained vigilant, scanning the skies for any sign of retaliation. Commander Marcus Hale stood on the bridge of the flagship, gazing out at the stars. His jaw was set in determination, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. He knew the initial victory was only temporary. The aliens' homeworld likely had resources far beyond what Aegis possessed. If they decided to strike again, humanity would face its greatest challenge yet. Back at headquarters, Evelyn gathered her top advisors for an emergency briefing. Holographic displays floated above the conference table, showing maps of Earth, schematics of alien vessels, and projections of potential attack scenarios. The mood in the room was tense but focused. "We intercepted additional transmissions from their homeworld," one analyst reported. "Their leadership views this incident as a humiliation. They're planning retaliation, but not immediately. They'll need time to mobilize forces." "How much time?" Evelyn asked sharply. "Days, possibly weeks," the analyst replied. "But when they come, they'll bring everything they've got." Evelyn nodded grimly. "Then we use this, time wisely. Double security measures worldwide. Deploy reconnaissance drones to monitor their movements, and step up production of our defense systems. We can't afford to be caught off guard." As the meeting continued, Evelyn couldn't shake the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. For years, Aegis had operated in secrecy, protecting humanity without recognition or reward. Now the stakes were higher than ever. Failure wasn't an option, not when billions of lives depended on their success. While Aegis prepared for war, ordinary citizens grappled with the reality of what they'd witnessed. Social media exploded with theories and speculation. Some claimed the ships belonged to aliens. Others insisted it was a government conspiracy. Videos of the event circulated endlessly, each frame scrutinized for clues. Despite official attempts to downplay the situation, skepticism grew. People demanded answers, and they weren't willing to wait. In response, Evelyn authorized a limited release of information. A press conference was scheduled, during which she would address the public directly. It was a risky move, but necessary. Humanity deserved to know the truth, even if only part of it. Standing before cameras and reporters, Evelyn projected calm confidence. "What you saw last night was real," she began, her voice steady. "Earth has been visited by extraterrestrial beings. However, these visitors are not friends. They pose a threat to our planet and its inhabitants. Rest assured, we are taking every possible measure to ensure your safety." The room erupted in questions, journalists shouting over one another, to be heard. Evelyn answered patiently, carefully avoiding details that could incite panic. By the end of the briefing, the message was clear. Humanity was under threat, but it was also protected. Later that evening, Evelyn returned to the room where Emma waited. The young girl looked up as she entered, her eyes wide with concern. "Did you talk to everyone?" she asked. "Yes," Evelyn replied, sitting beside her. "Not everyone knows the full story, but they know enough to understand the danger we're facing." "Do you think they'll believe you?" "Some will," Evelyn admitted. "Others may doubt. But that's okay. What matters is that we act. Together." Emma nodded, though uncertainty lingered in her gaze. "Will I have to stay here forever?" "No," Evelyn reassured her. "Once things settle down, you'll go home. Until then, consider this place your temporary sanctuary. You're helping us in ways you can't fully understand yet." Though exhaustion tugged at her eyelids, Emma managed a small smile. For the first time since the encounter, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity stood a chance against whatever lay ahead. Unknown to them, however, the alien empire was already preparing its next move. Far beyond the reaches of human detection, fleets of sleek, menacing ships gathered in orbit around their homeworld. Their leaders vowed vengeance, not just for the failed mission, but for the insult dealt to their pride. Earth would pay dearly for daring to defy them. And so, the stage was set for a battle that would determine the fate of two species, and perhaps the entire galaxy. Days turned into a week, and life on Earth seemed to settle back into its usual rhythm. The initial shock of the alien encounter had faded for many people, replaced by a mix of skepticism and cautious optimism. Governments assured citizens that everything was under control, while Aegis worked tirelessly behind the scenes to prepare for what they knew was inevitable. Yet, despite their efforts, an uneasy tension hung in the air, like the calm before a storm. Emma, now staying at Aegis headquarters, spent her days learning about the organization and its mission. Scientists and engineers often stopped by to chat with her, explaining how humanity had discovered ancient technologies buried deep within the Earth. These artifacts, left behind by long-lost civilizations, had been reverse-engineered over centuries, giving rise to the advanced fleet now patrolling the skies. Though she didn't fully understand all the technical details, Emma marveled at the ingenuity of her species. Humans weren't as powerless as the aliens believed, but even amidst the wonder, fear lingered in her heart. Every time she looked up at the sky, she couldn't help but wonder when, or if, the invaders would return. And when they did, would humanity truly be ready? Far beyond Earth's orbit, in the cold vastness of space, the alien empire mobilized its forces. Massive cruisers, sleek and menacing, gathered around their homeworld, forming a fleet unlike anything humanity had ever faced. Each ship bristled with weapons capable of obliterating entire cities. Their leaders, towering figures clad in shimmering armor, convened aboard the flagship to finalize plans for retaliation. "We cannot allow this insult to stand," declared the Supreme Commander, his voice resonating through the chamber. "Primitive humans have dared challenge our authority. They must be eradicated." The council members nodded in agreement, their glowing eyes reflecting determination. For them, this wasn't just about reclaiming honor. It was about survival. If word spread across the galaxy that Earth had resisted their empire, other civilizations might follow suit. The balance of power could shift irreversibly. No, humanity had to be crushed completely, without mercy. With orders issued, the fleet set course for Earth. Traveling faster than light, they closed the distance swiftly, arriving in Earth's solar system within days. As they approached, their ships cloaked themselves using advanced technology, rendering them invisible to human sensors. Only when they entered Earth's atmosphere did they reveal themselves, emerging suddenly like predators circling their prey. Back on Earth, alarms blared throughout Aegis headquarters. Monitors flickered to life, displaying images of dozens of alien vessels descending from the sky. Unlike the clumsy scouts from before, these ships were larger, deadlier, and far more organized. They moved with precision, positioning themselves strategically above major cities worldwide. Commander Marcus Hale stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the unfolding chaos. His hands gripped the railing tightly as he observed the enemy fleet. "They're here," he muttered grimly. Turning to his crew, he barked orders. "Activate planetary defenses. Deploy interceptors immediately." Across the globe, Aegis's hidden bases sprang into action. Fighter drones launched from underground silos, streaking toward the alien ships. Above cities, energy shields flickered to life, protecting civilians from potential attacks. Humanity's defenders were outnumbered, but they fought with purpose, driven by the knowledge that failure meant extinction. The first wave of combat erupted high in the atmosphere, where beams of light crisscrossed like fireworks. Alien cruisers unleashed devastating blasts, vaporizing several drones instantly. But Aegis's fighters retaliated fiercely, swarming the enemy ships and targeting weak points identified during earlier analyses. Explosions lit up the night sky, casting eerie shadows over landscapes below. Despite their courage, the human forces struggled to hold their ground. The aliens' weaponry was superior, and their numbers overwhelming. Every victory came at a cost. One lost drone meant another. Brave pilot gone forever. Still, Aegis refused to yield. They employed clever tactics, luring enemy ships into traps and exploiting gaps in their formations. From her vantage point in the command center, Emma watched the battle unfold on massive screens. Her hands trembled as she clutched the edge of her seat, tears streaming down her face. She recognized some of the pilots' names flashing across the displays. They were the same people who had comforted her, explained things to her, treated her like family. Now they were risking everything to protect her world. Dr. Evelyn Carter stood beside her, her expression resolute despite the mounting casualties. "We can't give up," she said firmly, though her voice betrayed a hint of sorrow. "If we fall, so does humanity." As the conflict raged on, Aegis deployed its secret weapon, a prototype device designed to disrupt alien systems. Known as the Quantum Disruptor, it emitted pulses of energy capable of disabling entire fleets simultaneously. However, activating it required precise timing and coordination. One misstep could leave Earth vulnerable to counterattacks. On the bridge of the flagship, Marcus coordinated the operation. "All units prepare for Phase 2, he shouted. "Target the lead cruiser. It controls the rest of the fleet." Drones converged on the designated ship, drawing fire away from the disruptor team. Meanwhile, engineers worked frantically to calibrate the device, ensuring it would function properly. Seconds felt like hours as everyone held their breath. Finally, the moment arrived. With a deafening hum, the quantum disruptor activated, sending waves of energy rippling outward. Alien ships shuddered violently as their systems failed, engines sputtering and weapons powering down. Pilots aboard the disabled cruisers scrambled to regain control, but it was too late. One by one, the ships began retreating, fleeing back into the depths of space. When the dust settled, Earth celebrated its improbable victory. News outlets hailed Aegis as heroes, though details remained classified. Slowly, pieces of the organization's existence leaked to the public, sparking debates about transparency versus security. Some argued that hiding such power endangered lives. Others believed secrecy kept humanity safer. For Emma, life returned to normal, or as normal as possible after witnessing an intergalactic war. She became an unofficial ambassador for Aegis, sharing her story to inspire others. They thought hurting a human child would be easy, she told audiences. They were dead wrong. Though scars remained, both physical and emotional, humanity emerged stronger. The universe now knew Earth wasn't a target to exploit but a force to respect. And somewhere among the stars, other civilizations watched, wondering if they too dared test the resolve of mankind. This part builds suspense, showcases humanity's resilience, and sets the stage for reflection and rebuilding in the final chapter. The aftermath of the battle left Earth forever changed. The skies, once filled with streaks of light and deafening explosions, now stretched quietly above humanity's cities and towns. Smoke lingered in the air, a grim reminder of the destruction that had taken place. Yet amidst the ruins there was also hope, a fragile but undeniable sense that humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious. Emma stood on a balcony at Aegis headquarters, looking out over the horizon. The sun was rising, painting the world in hues of gold and pink. It felt symbolic somehow, like the dawn of a new era. She clutched a small notebook in her hands, its pages filled with sketches and notes she'd made during her time here. Each drawing captured moments from the past week. The towering ships, the brave pilots, and even the strange aliens who had tried to take her. Writing it all down helped her process what she'd seen, turning fear into understanding. Behind her, Dr. Evelyn Carter approached quietly, holding 2 cups of tea. "Thought you might need this," she said gently, handing one to Emma. "You've been through more than any child should have to endure." Emma accepted the cup with a shy smile. "Thank you," she murmured, taking a sip. The warmth spread through her chest, offering a small comfort. She glanced up at Evelyn. "What happens now?" Evelyn sighed, leaning against the railing beside her. "Now we rebuild. Not just our cities or defenses, but trust. People deserve to know the truth about what happened, about us." Emma nodded thoughtfully. Over the past few days, she'd learned how much Aegis had sacrificed to protect humanity. Their secrecy wasn't born out of malice but necessity. Still, keeping such monumental secrets came at a cost. Families mourned loved ones lost in the battle without knowing why they died. Communities struggled to make sense of the devastation. Transparency wouldn't fix everything, but it was a start. In the days following the victory, Aegis released a series of carefully curated reports to the public. They revealed fragments of their history, the discovery of ancient technologies, the formation of the organization, and their ongoing efforts to safeguard Earth. Videos showed glimpses of the alien fleet retreating, accompanied by statements assuring citizens that the immediate threat had passed. However, Aegis also warned that humanity couldn't afford complacency. The universe was vast and unpredictable, and other challenges undoubtedly lay ahead. Reactions were mixed. Some praised Aegis as saviors, hailing them as guardians of Earth's future. Others accused them of hoarding power and demanded accountability for years of secrecy. Protests erupted outside government buildings, while debates raged online and in newsrooms. Despite the criticism, Evelyn remained steadfast. "We didn't ask for gratitude," she told her team during a private meeting. "We asked for cooperation. If humanity wants to survive, we must work together, not just among ourselves, but with other civilizations too." Her words resonated deeply with Emma. During her stay at Aegis, she'd met people from all walks of life, scientists, soldiers, engineers, all united by a shared purpose. They weren't perfect. They argued, doubted, and made mistakes like anyone else. But when it mattered most, they stood side by side, willing to risk everything for something greater than themselves. As weeks turned into months, life began to return to normal, or as close to normal as possible. Schools reopened, businesses resumed operations, and families rebuilt homes damaged during the conflict. Memorials were erected in honor of those who had fallen, their names etched into stone as a reminder of their sacrifice. Among them were pilots, engineers, and civilians alike, each life irreplaceable yet bound together by a common thread: the fight for survival. Emma returned home to her family, carrying memories she knew would shape her forever. Her parents hugged her tightly, tears streaming down their faces. They hadn't understood everything that had happened, but they didn't need to. All that mattered was that she was safe. For Emma, though, things were different. She couldn't unsee what she'd witnessed or forget the lessons she'd learned. Aliens existed. Humanity wasn't alone. And peace wasn't guaranteed. It required vigilance, courage, and unity. To help others understand, Emma began sharing her story. At first, it was just with classmates and teachers. Then, local news outlets invited her to speak at community events. Eventually, her words reached national audiences, inspiring countless people to think differently about their place in the cosmos. "They thought hurting a human child would be easy," she often said, echoing Evelyn's earlier sentiment. "But they underestimated us. We're stronger than they imagined." Her message struck a chord. Children wrote letters thanking her for being brave. Adults expressed admiration for her resilience. Even skeptics found themselves moved by her sincerity. In time, Emma became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could rise to meet the challenge. Meanwhile, Aegis continued its work, expanding its reach and strengthening alliances across the globe. Scientists collaborated with governments to develop new technologies, ensuring Earth would never again be caught off guard. Diplomats reached out to distant civilizations, seeking peaceful coexistence rather than conflict. Though progress was slow, every step forward brought them closer to a brighter future. One evening, as Emma sat on her bed sketching another picture, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was an invitation from Aegis, an offer to join their Youth Ambassador program. The idea excited her. By accepting, she could continue learning about the universe while helping others prepare for whatever lay ahead. After discussing it with her parents, she agreed, eager to contribute in any way she could. On her first day back at headquarters, Emma was greeted warmly by familiar faces. Evelyn smiled proudly as she handed her a badge bearing the Aegis insignia. "Welcome aboard," she said. "You've already done so much. Now let's see where your journey takes you next." Emma pinned the badge to her jacket, feeling a surge of determination. This wasn't the end of her story. It was only the beginning. There were still mysteries to unravel, challenges to overcome, and dreams to pursue. Whatever came next, she knew one thing for certain. Humanity was capable of greatness. Together they could face anything the universe threw their way. Far beyond Earth's orbit, the alien empire licked its wounds, plotting revenge. Their leaders vowed to return, stronger and more ruthless than before. But for now they retreated into the shadows, watching and waiting. Humanity had proven itself formidable, but the galaxy was vast and threats lurked in every corner. Yet, as the stars twinkled above, casting their eternal glow over Earth, humanity stood tall. No longer naive or divided, they looked toward the horizon with resolve. They were no longer merely inhabitants of a pale blue dot. They were explorers, warriors, and dreamers. And somewhere among the constellations, other beings watched, wondering if humanity's light would fade or shine brighter. Still, for Emma and millions like her, the choice was clear. The light would burn eternal.